Welcome to episode 2 of Fixing Up with Amazon, Ready to Ride. We're back at Bruce's garage. I've been ordering parts from Amazon left, right and centre, and he's got boxes and boxes of things ready to fit so we can get the bike ready for our trip. So see if he's in and we'll get cracking into some work.
Hello mate.
How are we doing?
Come on in.
You've been a busy boy, Bruce.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I've just put a new tyre on it. The wheel's still out because I'm going to do the brakes.
Okay, yeah. Talking of which, did those parts arrive?
Yeah, they're all on the bench here, look.
Perfect, we can get cracking. How are we going to tackle this then, Bruce?
Well, the calipers need cleaning, new pads, and we had a little bit of run out, if you remember, on the discs, so we're going to replace those. We've got them in anyway, so.
Okay. Perhaps if I do the discs and then you do the bit on the calipers, and then once we're all buttoned up, we can bleed the fluid together.
Yeah, let's do it.
Quick tip before we get going, I've put the wheel on top of the old tyre. Two good reasons for that. First is to protect the wheel. The second one is to give us a bit of stability. If you don't have an old tyre knocking around, you can use 2 medium-sized lengths of wood just to keep it off the bench. Before we fit the new discs, a few little tips for you. We're reusing these old bolts. As you can see, there's a little bit of thread lock left on there from the previous fitting. We're going to clean that all off before we put some more on. Then the second one is loose parts and just making sure you get all the assemblies back. Now, in the case of the Z1000SX, we've got these little shims that fit beyond the discs. Very easy to leave those on the bench and have to take it all apart again and start from the beginning. Also, we have the speed sensor ring for the ABS and traction control systems. Make sure that goes on the right side, and again, don't forget that, otherwise you can be having problems down the road too. Finally, wheel spacers. Now, in this instance, they've not fallen out, but they quite often do when you pick the wheel up, take the spindle out, things like that. Make sure they're clean for a start. If they've rolled across the floor, picked up dirt and so on, you don't want to be introducing that to your wheel spindles and bearings and so on. Also, just take a note of which side they came out of as well, because if you don't and you put them on the wrong side, you can have wheel alignment issues, and they can sometimes be very similar from side to side. So just make sure you've got absolutely everything back in the right spot and as it should be before you kind of start bolting the bike back together. Make sure this surface where the disc bears down on is perfectly clean, undamaged, because it only takes the tiniest bit of dirt or a little nick from a tool, and that can upset your disc alignment and cause the sort of problems that we've been having. This was perfectly okay, so that wasn't our issue, but it's always worth checking. When you're doing brake disc bolts, it's important that you torque them up. And the other thing to remember is if the manufacturer specifies either a grease or thread lockers in this instance, you have to use that because that affects the torque setting. So make sure you do everything exactly as they tell you to.
While he's doing those discs, I'm going to crack on, get the pads out and give the calipers a proper clean. So I'll get some tools and get started on that. Right, a little tip here is to temporarily remount the caliper. Like so. Just nip them up a bit. And the reason for doing this is because the pins can be really tight and you probably won't be able to hold it tight enough in your other hand while you're undoing it. There you go. If I hadn't have put those calipers back on, that would have been really difficult to get off. Now the pads are out, I can give the calipers a really good clean. I'm going to use Castrol Green Tech Bike Cleaner. I'm going to mix it with water and that's going to give us a really good solution that will help clean all that road dirt, and I'll use a nylon brush to agitate it. Like I just mentioned, I've got a solution here with Castrol Green Tech Bike Cleaner. So this solution is quite gentle, which is exactly what we want. We don't want to use anything too aggressive because that could potentially damage seals. So I'm ready to put new pads in, but first we need to push the old pistons back, and I'm going to do this by putting old pads in like so, and then getting something that I can lever them apart with. I'm putting the old pads in because I don't want to damage the new ones. So we put that in there like so, and tease back those pistons. There they go, look at them. Wonderful, there you go. Right, that's those pistons all the way back. That gives us enough clearance with new pads, because without that, they'd have been a bit tight on the discs or wouldn't have fitted at all. There you go, look, loads of clearance. Let's get these retaining pins in and then tightened up to manufacturer's spec. Right, that's the pads back in. Over to the caliper, where I'll just repeat the same process. So I've just noticed how dirty the bottom of the forks and fork stanchions are, so while the wheel's out, I'll give them a thorough clean as well. It's good practice to do this because any dirt on the fork stanchion can potentially damage a seal.
There we go, discs all right way around and everything.
Oh, well done. Well, we've done the brake pads, so wheel in and then change the brake fluid.
Yep.
Right, as you can see, I've got the bike off stand because the 108 Newton meters that this needs to be tightened up to will potentially topple it off. So let's have a look. There you go. Right, as you can see, I put the bike back on the stand again to check it's not binding, but most importantly, we want to pump the brakes up because the new pads will have been pushed right back. There you go, they're starting to bind. If you forget to do this, you'll be in trouble. You should do it every time you fit pads or have the calipers off. I'll get that final pump, get some pressure in that lever like that. Look at that. That's ready to go.
All right, nice job on the brakes, Bruce.
No worries, yeah.
Very pleased with the discs, if I do say so myself. Brake fluid now, quick job, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it is easy. So it's a quick flush through. We need a one-way bleed valve and 10mm spanner.
Okay, we'll grab those. I'm going to pop this microfiber cloth underneath this reservoir because brake fluid is corrosive, especially to paintwork. It can kind of ruin all the finishes in your bike. So when you take the cap off, there can be a little bit on the rubber diaphragm underneath, that can drip. And also when you're topping up, if you lose a little bit, that's not great either. And a lot of people use workshop tissue, but I like a microfiber cloth because they're that bit more absorbent and you can wash them out afterwards, reuse them again.
So to make life easier, we've got a one-way bleed valve. The idea being that when you're flushing your fluid through and pumping, it doesn't draw air back in, it only lets the fluid come out. So what I'm going to do is just connect it on top of the nipple, just like so, just ensuring that the arrow's the right way. So I'm going to put the 10mm spanner on the nipple, gently open that there, and that's ready to start flushing through. Right, if you put some pressure on that now, gently, that'll start flushing through. Yeah, there you go, open up a bit more. Keep an eye on the level.
Yeah, we're plenty to start with, we'll let that drain out.
Yeah, that's flowing nicely.
As you can see, with this one-way valve, I can just keep on carefully pumping the lever, topping the fluid as we go. Talking of which, do a little bit more there. Don't forget, we're not just doing this for your entertainment and information, test Bruce's patience a little bit. We're doing this so we can give the bike away to one of you as well. For you to be in a chance to win, follow the link on screen, or if you want to win one of the prize packages of the tools and goodies, go to www.motorcyclenews.com/ready to ride. Something worth mentioning is this bike has ABS, as a lot of bikes do from the last 10 years or so. What that means is rather than the fluid going straight from master cylinder to calipers, it's going off via the ABS pump somewhere under the tank and the seat, and going through that system there and then to the calipers. Now, in this instance, we don't need to do any special techniques in order to get that fluid through the whole system, but certain makes and models, you have to plug it into a dealer diagnostic machine and cycle it through. It's a lot more complicated and it's not something you can do at home. So before you get stuck into one of these jobs, just check beforehand. Are we looking down there, Bruce? Is that clean fluid coming through now?
Yeah, that's all clear now, mate.
Okay. We're going to lock that caliper off now, and then we can move on to the other side, and then we've also got the rear to do. Same process all the way through. Brakes done, we can lose that now. Pop that back on there. What we've got left to do?
Coolant change and flush next.
Okay. We haven't got a great deal of room here. Do you think it's worth turning the bike round? Because everything's on this side for that.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, no, turn it round and then we'll remove the panels to get the water pump, drain bolt and the rad cap.
Okay. Right, Bruce, that's all the fairings off. What are we doing now? What's the procedure there?
Well, to drain the coolant, quite straightforward. Rad cap off, and then this little guy here, this 8mm bolt, we'll take that off and have a bucket or something to catch all the coolant that comes out. We'll just wait for it to drain.
Okay, all right.
From there.
Something worth mentioning is on some bikes you will have a bleed screw further up in the system as well. We've already checked the manual and we know this one doesn't have it. But always make sure you, again, check the manual and got all these little procedures down, just so you don't miss something, because if you do, if you've got an air pocket in your coolant system, you can easily overheat it, blow it up, and just for a small mistake, so always check that.
First of all, we just need to gently crack that like so. A couple of turns, and here's the thing, this will come out at 90 degrees. So if you're not careful, stream of fluid will, there you go, see what I mean? We've got that. Right, I'll get in here with this, get this a wipe around. It's a little bit of a messy job sometimes.
We're flushing any remnants, the old coolant and any kind of sediment that's built up in there with a normal bit of tap water. This is especially important if you're changing the type of coolant that you're putting in. They're not supposed to be mixed. It's time to refill the cooling system now. The drain bolt's back in, so we can go ahead and top it up. The manufacturer specifies 2.9 litres of coolant. We've got 3 litres, so we've got a little bit in hand, just in case that's not quite accurate. So I'm going to open that up. This particular coolant comes in 1 litre bottles, so we know we can put the first 2 in without worrying about it too much. We'll just get it in there, let it settle a bit, perhaps squeeze the hoses. For the final one, we'll just fill it a bit more carefully and watch the level in the filler neck as it comes up. There we go. Radiator cap back on. That's almost finished that job. What we're going to do later is run the bike again just up to 90 degrees or so, enough to get the thermostat open, and we'll just doubly check that we've got enough coolant in there. There's not any last little bits of air that are purged when the bike's running and circulating it. But first, while we've got the side fairing off, we're going to attack the chain of sprockets now. We need access to that front sprocket behind the fairing anyway, so it makes sense to do it in one. But what we don't want to do is get the bike too hot, burn Bruce's fingers and cause all manner of problems.
So first things first, I'm going to take the gear linkage bolt off so we can get that out of the way of the front sprocket cover. The good thing is with this Amazon kit, it's got some long reach sockets that allow you to get access to these deep bits here. There we go. Right, these are usually located on a dowel or two like that, and they'll snap off. There it comes, there's the front sprocket.
Right then, Bruce, we've got the front sprocket cover off now, so we've got access to everything. How are you going to go about changing the chain of sprockets? Because there's a few different approaches you could take.
Yeah, that's true. So the way I do it, I'd undo the front sprocket nut, leave the front sprocket on, then move to the back wheel, get it loosened, wheel out, rear sprocket on the rear, then at the same time, get the new front sprocket on while the chain has no tension on it at all, then get the wheel in, and then loop the old chain to the new chain, join, and then rivet.
Gotcha. We'll get on with it then.
This is my quick way of joining the old chain to the new chain, and like so. So that's the old one, new one, and what you do is thread it through all the way round, keeping a bit of tension on. Straighten that out. There we go, over the front sprocket and all the way round. Disconnect it. Then you're ready to rivet it together. So we're going to use a rivet link. The O-rings have been installed with the grease, and we just push it through. And do the same on the other side with grease. There we go, let's put that there. So with the O-rings on this side as well, I can put the side link on. You can finish off with the riveting tool.
Just gonna give the bike a quick clean down because we've got a little bit of coolant around, a few oily fingerprints, so before the bodywork goes back on we just want to make sure it's nice and clean and we don't have any nasty smells of chemicals burning off when we come to run the bike. Bike all buttoned up now, bodywork back on, it's had a little clean, quick polish as well. Change sprockets is all tensioned and correct, coolant levels right, so we're happy with the bike now. So all that's left is to refit the panniers. Think I need to get my gear on and go for a bit of a test ride, see how it's going. Yeah,
no, that's good. Just remember, that's new brakes, that's pads and discs, and a new front tyre, so just think about that before you start in.
Yeah, before we stretch the wire a little bit. Yeah, we'll take it easy for a few miles, let all that bed in, but no. Thank you for your help, mate. I'll have a little fist bump off you as well.
There we go.
So that's the test ride done, and I'm really pleasantly surprised at the difference that we've made to this Z1000. Now, what we've done to the bike isn't necessarily clever or new. you might be sitting there thinking, oh, I've done an oil change before, and yeah, okay, it's not my first rodeo either, but it's easy to take a bike with a full service history and a fresh MOT at face value and assume, all good, let's go and do 2,000 miles on it. But we found it's not actually the case with this bike. It was good, but not perfect. And so on the strength of this test ride, it's a much better bike, and I'm going to be much happier taking it to Scotland and turning it over to one of you guys as well. Now, the first thing I noticed was the front tyre. Before, it was wandering, it was vague, it did strange things at low speed, it was nervous at high speed, it just wasn't very pleasant at all. And all of that's gone. In place, we've got feel, stability, grip and confidence, which is the most important thing. And then sort of moving on to the brakes, those new brakes and discs, they've eradicated that horrible warped feeling with the sort of juddering at the lever. And these aftermarket parts are a nice little upgrade as well, so they're probably sharper than the bike ever would have been in the first place. The biggest surprise was the difference in feel from the engine. Now, all we've really done there is change the oil, change the coolant. Now, the coolant won't have made a drastic difference that I would have noticed. It'll definitely help it, just kind of keep a lid on the temperature once we kind of get into traffic or on a really hot day on a long ride. But the engine oil has definitely made a difference, which sounds bizarre and it's not something I've necessarily experienced before, but if you think back, this was overfilled and it was black as well, so it'd obviously been in there for a long time. So between those two things, it was just kind of holding it back a little bit, and now it's a lot freer revving, it's smoother as well, it just feels a bit punchier and a bit more exciting, so that's a unexpected surprise. And then moving backwards, the new chain of sprockets, that's made a difference too. Now, my initial motivation for changing those was I'm a little bit OCD about nice shiny chains and sprockets. I don't like other people's corrosion and rust ruining my life. But there were a few stiff links, and again, that's just helped smooth out the drivetrain feel. So it's just going to be a bit nicer when we're grinding out motorway miles to get to Scotland. And talking of grinding out the miles, that's exactly what we're going to be doing with this bike the next time you see it. I'm stood above the A1, and the next time I'm here, I'll be heading for Scotland in that direction. The idea is that we're going to put over 1,000 miles on this, well over 1,000 miles actually, and kind of prove this bike's worth. We're going to prove that a used bike can be, with a little bit of work and kind of bit of attention, can be solid for many miles to come, and a great price for one of you. Make sure you visit the links in the description down below for details on how you can win this bike, as well as the other prize packages we've got up for grabs. We've been using the Amazon Basics socket set. We've used the ratcheting screwdriver as well with multiple bits. We've used the Amazon Basics torque wrenches in 2 different sizes as well. We've also got an Amazon Basics ratcheting spanner set. They were very useful. From Castrol, we've been using their engine oil as well. We also have a tin of chain lube, plus brake fluid and coolant, which we'll come to in the future when we get further into the bike. And then from Noco, we've used the Boost X pack, as well as the replacement NL9P battery, which is in the bike now. We've got a remote charging lead which is fitted. We also have the Noco Genius 5 battery charger and maintainer.